Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about animal bodies as systems. I'm on page 80 of your book. We're talking about lesson 3 of unit 2. And so our kind of central theme about this lesson is about body systems of animals and how they can have similar systems. They may look differently, they may function differently, but they still interact within that animal and each serves a purpose. And so if we look at the picture of this nautilus here, this nautilus, it's a pretty old animal as animals come, so it's been around for about 500 million years, and in that time it's changed very little, actually. It has tentacles, it has a beak that's similar to a parrot's beak. The tentacles, however, a little bit different than, say, like an octopus. An octopus has suckers on their tentacles, and the nautilus here, they don't have those suckers, they're kind of ridged. And there's a lot of them. Some of them have over 100 different tentacles on there. And so if we think about other animals that have tentacles or a beak, how does the animal use these structures to move and to catch food? Well, an octopus, it'll squeeze its prey with its tentacles. A bird uses its hard beak to get food, maybe crack open a nut or fruit or something like that. And so they have similar structures, but they may be used in different ways. So they may use those structures in slightly different ways. And so if we look at the animal body, so the bodies of animals, animal bodies come in all shapes and sizes. Animals live in many different environments. They can live on land, underground. They can be feathered, furry, or neither. And so if we look at the page 83 here, and we look at all these animals that are here, a lot of times we don't think of some of these as animals, like a sponge, for example. This barrel sponge. A sponge is actually an animal, and the sponge, a animal-type sponge, is really a lot like a sponge that you would have maybe in your house, maybe in your kitchen or something like that. You can actually buy real sponges that would actually hold water and you could actually use to clean things with, just like a regular sponge that you maybe go buy at the store, an artificial type one. But we look at these animals, there's lots of different body structures that they have, and so if we were to look at comparing these structures, okay, so say we were to choose some to compare with, okay, so if we were to compare flatworms with the annelids, so if we look over here at the flatworms, this is a flatworm, and this would be an annelid, like an earthworm. Okay, a flatworm, it kind of has a flattened body shape. An annelid has a rounded body shape, okay, filled with fluid. But both of these lack limbs. They both lack limbs. They're similar in some ways, and they're a little bit different in others. Same if we compare a squid and a crab. Squids can live only in the ocean. They kind of have a soft body with them. They do kind of have a soft body. While a crab, if we look at a crab, it kind of has an exoskeleton. They can live on land and in the water. They both do kind of have legs in a sense that the squid has these tentacles, kind of these legs out here. And so they both have these tentacles that kind of come out from them. And so they both have those limbs that are there. So if we look at the functions of animal bodies, there's different systems in animals, especially if we look at humans here as an example. There's lots of different systems, like the digestive system. Okay, the digestive system helps break down food, the nutrients that we eat, and then the excretory system gets rid of the waste that we have. Okay, so there's relationships between those. There's relationships between the digestive system and the excretory system. There are those relationships. And so even if we look at our picture here at the bottom that has the teeth of a seal and a shark, we can see that the teeth of the seal are different shapes than the teeth of the shark. The teeth of the seal are kind of more rounded, and they contain these small ridges in them. And those small ridges are to help filter krill out, so that's what that seal eats. The tiger shark, its teeth are much sharper, kind of serrated, kind of razor-like teeth, and they're made for biting, okay, biting and hanging on, because they eat different things. And so those teeth help with that. If we were to look at the teeth of like a horse or a cow or a grazing animal, their teeth are kind of wide and flat, and that's because they grind up the grasses that they would eat. So systems work together. So you have different systems that work to deliver oxygens and nutrients to your body. So like the respiratory system, kind of your heart, lungs, and even some muscular systems, a diaphragm, the muscle that helps you breathe. Those systems kind of work together with the circulatory system. So the circulatory system carries blood and other nutrients through your body. So actually, the heart is kind of part of both of those systems. But the heart would pick up, as you pump blood, the heart pumps blood, it picks up oxygen from your lungs and delivers it to the cells of your body, and it picks up carbon dioxide, delivers them back to the lungs, and you can breathe that out. The circulatory system also picks up nutrients from your digestive system. So it picks up nutrients from your digestive system and actually delivers those nutrients to the rest of your body as well. Okay? And so if we look at, you can even see this picture from the frog. This frog actually has some little see-through type skin almost, so you can actually see the heart right there. So there's a layer of water just underneath the frog's skin that captures oxygen from the air or the water and delivers it to its blood vessels under the skin surface. And so how do you think this function might relate to how that frogs are sensitive to environmental pollution? Well, if you have chemicals or elements, molecules that are traveling through the frog's skin, it doesn't just stop with the things that the frog needs. And so actually those pollutants that may be in the water, environmental pollution, or the air, would actually travel through the skin as well and can actually help contaminate the inside of that frog and actually lead to some health effects for that frog. And so because the skin is relatively permeable, frogs readily absorb pollutants in the air and water into their body. So their different systems also can provide some movement and support. So your muscular system kind of works with your skeletal system in a human to help provide some support and as well as movement. Your muscles pull against bones to move those bones and then eventually move you. Sort of like insects even have this too. The muscles attached to their exoskeleton. Their skeleton is on the outside instead of the inside. You have an internal skeleton, while insects have what we call an exoskeleton. And so if we look at the exoskeleton of an insect, provides stiff protective armor. And despite the protection, how might the exoskeleton be a disadvantage for growth and movement? Well, it's kind of a rigid skeleton, and so in order for a insect to grow, it actually has to shed its exoskeleton, and it will emerge, and it becomes kind of a softer body right there for a little bit until the exoskeleton will harden back up. So when an insect sheds its exoskeleton, it becomes very vulnerable until that exoskeleton kind of firms back up and reforms. There's also information processing. So the nervous system helps with the information processing that happens. And so many different animals have a nervous system. They look differently in some cases. They don't all look the same. Not every animal has a nervous system like you that doesn't have a brain, spinal cord, and nerves. Okay, so they may have different types of nervous system, but they still do have a nervous system of some kind. So if we refer back, this evidence notebook refers back to that first page of the Nautilus. Okay, the Nautilus does not have a skeleton, but it has an external shell that it can close completely. The Nautilus pulls water inside the cavity in the shell, which is then expelled through the muscular siphon. So how do you think the Nautilus body provides support and movement? Well, the flow of water in and out of the Nautilus body that helps it move forward or backward or sideways. And it can actually change the direction of that siphon, and so it can move where it needs to go. The external shell contains and protects the animal's soft body. So that external shell actually helps protect it. So if we analyze the structure and function of insect and respiration, insects have these little openings. They're called spiracles. And so these little openings that are on insects allow air to come in, and so it allows oxygen to get into the body of insects, and then it allows carbon dioxide to get out. And it does it through a process called diffusion, where it's just where there's a lot of oxygen, we'll move to an area where there's not as much. And when there's an area of a lot of carbon dioxide, it moves to an area where there's not as much. And so the circulatory system of an insect transports water and nutrients and waste, but does not transport oxygen. And why do you think that? Well, it's because these spiracles, they lead to the trachea, and the trachea delivers oxygen directly to all the tissues in the insect's body. Now some insects do kind of have a heart on the inside. They don't really have veins and arteries like you do, but that heart actually beats and just kind of circulates a fluid that is on the inside of those insects. And so that kind of helps move that oxygen and carbon dioxide around as well. So spiracles can be covered with hairs or spines. And so how do you think this structure relates to its function? Well, the hairs covering the spiracles can help filter the dust and other contaminants from entering the trachea. So they want to insects, just like humans, want to try and keep all the contaminants out that they can. So the more you can keep those contaminants out, the better the functioning of those systems will be. So if we look at exploration 2, analyzing body systems. So if we were to analyze body systems and how they interact, okay, animal body systems interact to perform functions. All right, so if we look at this parrotfish, so it has some systems that are interacting here. So it lives near coral reefs, and so they got their name from this beak-like thing that they have on the front. And they actually take bites of coral off, and so it's a pretty substantial structure there. Okay, so if we look at the process and then what systems would be involved in that. So the chewing of food, that's like our skeletal system and our muscular system. We need our skeletal system and our muscular system to do so. The muscles pull against the bone. Think of us, that's how your mouth moves up and down. Your teeth are part of your skeletal system, and so that helps grind up the food as you eat it. Movement of food through the body, well, that's our muscular system and our digestive system. The digestive system is kind of the channel that food moves through. The muscular system is how it moves through the body. If you think of the absorption of nutrients and transport of nutrients, well, that's our circulatory system and our digestive system. Getting rid of carbon dioxide, well, that's our respiratory system and our excretory system. And really, you could even also include the circulatory system here for humans. The circulatory system transports that carbon dioxide back to your lungs, and then it actually will then get expelled through there. So we look at our evidence notebook, our question number 10 here at the bottom. The nautilus has ridged tentacles and a powerful parrot-like beak. It has poor vision and hunts mostly at night. So how do you think the nautilus body structures help it catch and eat food? And what sensory stimulus do you think it uses? Well, in that case, it is detecting prey by smell or motions. So the tentacles grab hold of the prey, and then the beak mechanically breaks up the prey for digestion. It eats it. Okay? So those ridged tentacles and the parrot-like beak help it to survive. So those are structures that kind of work together to actually help it survive. Okay? So if we look at the next page here, we have a whale breaching behavior. So whales, if you've ever seen a whale breach, whales will jump out of the water and then kind of belly flop kind of thing into the water. Okay? So the whale may detect a stimulus in the environment and begins the breach. Response: the heart pumps faster as the whale swims rapidly to gain momentum, and the whale rises, and maybe its entire body will come out of the surface of the water. So scientists have several ideas about why whales do this behavior. They're not even for sure why, in some cases, why the whales perform this behavior. They may be communicating. It may be a change of route to other whales or in the pod. Maybe about claiming territory, attracting a mate, removing body parasites that get attached to it, or it just simply may just be having fun. And so scientists do not have an explanation for this phenomenon exactly, so they're still researching it. But if you were to choose one of the ideas about why whales breach, and write a detailed sequence of events describing the interaction of the body systems that happen to the whales, well, that would be, you can have lots of different things of why whales breach, but they're going to have many different systems involved. Pretty much a whale is going to always, and no matter what example you choose, a whale is always going to have movement. And so the skeletal system and the muscular system are going to have to work together to provide movement for that whale. Animals respond to their environment. Just like plants respond to their environment, all living things respond to their environment. Animals also respond to their environment. So if we look here, this cat, it hunts rodents that are scurrying through the grass. Well, the sensory organ, it can use its ears to hear and locate prey. And then the response of that would be to pounce and try to catch the rodent. A silkworm moth can detect very small concentrations of chemicals given off by the females. It uses the antenna to detect chemicals. And then the response is it's going to travel to that female. Scallop, it watches for shadows of predators such as sea stars. And when it sees the motion with its many eyes, and see all these little blue dots are the eyes of a scallop there. So when it sees the motion, it will try to escape. And so the systems work together. So that you have a sensory organ, it works with other systems to then create a response that helps that organism survive. And so if we were to name something you react to in your environment, how do you detect it? How does your body system work together to respond? You can have lots of different examples here. But if you have urine pee and a ball's flying at you, you see that, you may duck. So you're having a sensory organ of your eye that detects that movement, and then you have your muscular and skeletal systems are working together to help move you out of the way, to protect you. And so systems of animals always work together. So we're going to talk more about systems of animals, and you're going to have a couple of assignments to work on this week. Just remember, as always, this week, if you're having any trouble or need some help, please do not hesitate to contact your teacher. Thanks for all your hard work, guys.